Hello to everybody, and welcome to our new study in the book of Esther. If you're new here and you've never done one of our Bible studies before, welcome for the first time, and welcome to our returning viewers as well. Let me give a quick rundown for how we do our studies for anyone who may be new, because I suspect that Esther, being one of the more popular Old Testament books to study, I suspect there'll be some new people coming in here. So we try to do 5-minute Bible studies every day. Every day we do one chapter of the Bible, and the goal is to study all the way through the Bible. We're about halfway done at this point at the time of recording, and the plan is to continue on the rest of the Old Testament and the New Testament. Every day we make a video study, and it's accompanied by our PDF outlines, which you'll see up on the screen right now. Now, these are free. You can download them, and they have all of the key information for every chapter in them. They're at our website at tobelikechrist.com. So if you want them, every day when a new video goes up, you can go on the website and download the new PDF for the day. And if you're watching this sometime in the future, hopefully our physical book is available, and there'll be a link down in the description to where you can get it on Amazon. Very briefly, here's how we do our studies. We try to ask the investigation questions. We always start off with when. When did these events happen in biblical and, basically on a historical timeline? Place them in history, real dates, real times, contemporary with other secular events. We ask who our key main characters are, our key historical figures in the chapter, and then we go to our map and look at geographically where the events took place. Our second page is really where the meat of the study is. It's our outline, where we break each chapter down by sections to try to make it as easy to understand as possible, and we talk about the contents. And then our final section every day is our application. Now that we've read and studied and digested these biblical truths, what applications can we take away that we can apply into our modern lives? Now, generally, we do this in about 5 minutes. I don't always hit the 5-minute mark. Our first study of a book is always a little bit longer, though, because we have more introduction information. That'll probably be true with this study as well. So let's just go ahead and jump into our first section, and you'll kind of see how this goes. You'll notice for our timeline, I've got several dates here spanning almost about 100 years, and I've included some of these dates for the people who have just finished our Ezra and Nehemiah study with us. We just went through those books, and what we're going to find out in the book of Esther is that Esther, her life has some overlap with Ezra and Nehemiah's life. So I've included these dates, and these are helpful in understanding the history of the Jewish people. And Esther's story is deeply connected with the history of the Jewish people. We talked about how the Jews spent 70 years in captivity in Babylon, and they were released from that captivity in about 538 BC when Cyrus the Great, the king of Persia, conquered Babylon and released the Jews to return to the Promised Land. In 516 BC, the rebuilding of the temple is completed. So the temple had been destroyed by the Babylonians. Its rebuilding completed about 516. Now, this is kind of where, in between the completion of the temple and the beginning of the story of Ezra, that's where we see Esther appearing, and where this book picks up. 483 BC, the story of Esther begins in the third year of the reign of King Ahasuerus. We'll talk about him a little bit more in our outline. It's about 25 years after the events we're going to read about today that Ezra arrives in Jerusalem, and in 444 BC, Nehemiah arrives in Jerusalem. So if you were with us for those studies, this will help frame up the story of Esther, and if you weren't with us for those studies, maybe it would be helpful to go back after Esther and do Ezra and Nehemiah to kind of complete the picture. Now, as we open up the first chapter of this book, we're not necessarily going to be introduced to Esther here in this chapter. We are going to be setting the scene for her arrival, really, in chapter 2. So let's talk about our key characters that we are going to mention. We have King Ahasuerus. He's also known as Xerxes in secular history. He reigned as king of Persia from 486 to 464 BC. We have Queen Vashti. This is the queen of King Ahasuerus. And then we have the court of the king. Ahasuerus had 7 advisors, 7 wise princes who ruled with him in Persia, and they're going to help him kind of work through the dilemma that he finds himself in chapter 1. Now we scroll down to our map section, and the book of Esther is kind of unique in that, a lot of the Bible, it takes place in and around like Jerusalem, Israel, Judah, down in the land of Egypt, places like that. But for Esther, we are traveling way out to the east, to the kingdom of Persia, to the capital of Persia, where the king of Persia was located, and that is Susa. So you can see Susa above the Persian Gulf, and it's like to the northeast of Ur of the Chaldees. Now, do you remember who came from Ur of the Chaldees? It was Abraham. So we're kind of going back out to, kind of around to the land of where Abraham came from to talk about the story of Esther. So kind of a unique location. All right, so we've made it over to page number 2, and we're going to take a look at our outline. I've broken this chapter down into 2 different sections. The first one is verses 1 through 9, and then the next one is verses 10 through 22. The first section I've entitled, Ahasuerus Celebrates His Kingdom. So Ahasuerus, the king of Persia, he reigned over a huge empire. He really was probably, in an undisputed way, the most powerful man on earth at that time. Most powerful and probably also the most influential. So he reigned from India to Ethiopia and in many other areas, a huge, massive kingdom. In the 3rd year of his reign, he celebrated the greatness of his empire with a 180-day celebration. So this was quite an event. Towards the end of these 180 days, he had a 7-day feast for all of the people of Susa, this capital city where his palace was. The feast was held in the court of the garden of the palace, and it was decorated magnificently. It's described in the text. It says there were white curtains, violet hangings, marble pillars, couches of gold and silver that were spread across a mosaic pavement made from porphyry. Porphyry is like a granite that has crystals interlaced in it. I had to look that one up. Marble, mother of pearl, and other precious stones. So he's made this pavement, and a lot of times we just use plain old boring rocks to make pavements, right? But he's got a mosaic, which is some kind of design or picture, and the floor is made out of gems and mother of pearl and marble. I mean, this guy, he had the deep pockets and the tax money to be doing stuff like this. We're told that the people drank from cups made out of gold, and the royal wine was flowing freely to all people. We also see our first mention here of Vashti, who is the queen of Persia, at least for a little bit longer. She is holding a feast specifically for the women, seemingly a separate feast. And that kind of launches into section number 2, verses 10 through 22. Vashti refuses an order from the king. So on the 7th day of the feast, Ahasuerus, the king, he orders his eunuchs to bring Queen Vashti to him so that his guests can basically gawk at her, admire her beauty, because the text says that she was, quote, lovely to look at. And there's a lot of speculation as to what exactly was being ordered here. Some people think that maybe she was being brought in to appear maybe in less than modest dress. We don't exactly know. We don't have all of the details, but whatever she was being asked to do, she didn't want to do it. And so she refused the king's order, which back then, you didn't refuse what the king ordered, but she did. And this infuriated her husband. Ahasuerus asked his 7 closest advisors what they should do to Vashti since she had directly disobeyed an order from the king of Persia. And the advisors told him that what they should do is they should expel, or the king should expel Vashti from his presence forever. She should have her queenly title ripped away from her, and she should be replaced by another woman. They also told him to send out a royal decree announcing his decision to the empire, and they felt like this was really important because if news got out that Vashti had directly disobeyed an order from the king and people thought that she had gotten away with it, then women all across the empire would start rebelling against their husbands and using Vashti as kind of their authority to do so. They concluded this about this decree that they wanted to send out, quote, so when the decree made by the king is proclaimed throughout all his kingdom, for it is vast, all women will give honor to their husbands, high and low alike. That's verse 20. So Ahasuerus, he approved of this idea, and he sent out this letter of decree to all of the royal provinces. So he is now queenless, and Vashti this indeed takes place. Vashti loses her title and her marriage to him, and now he has a situation where he doesn't have a queen, and that kind of sets up the storyline of the rest of the book of Esther. He's going to be looking for a king at the beginning of looking for a queen at the beginning of chapter 2. All right, so that is our quick summary of Esther 1. Now we go down to our application, and our application today comes directly from the text, and that is, wives, you have to listen to your husbands or you're going to get in trouble. All right, well, that's all we have for today. Thanks for joining me. No, okay, that's not actually our application. I proposed that one to my wife, and she didn't seem to like it. And half of the women who just have tuned into this study will not be returning for chapter 2 now. But no, oh, that's not the application for today. I think it's biblical. What do you want me to do? Let's talk about the actual application that's on our PDF here. When I read about the courtyard of the palace of Ahasuerus, where they had this feast, it reminded me of some of the descriptions of heaven, of God's dwelling in the rest of the Bible. Gold furniture and streets that were paved with gemstones reminded me of the streets of gold and the gem-lined walls of the city that John saw in Revelation chapter 21, the last book of the Bible. But what was different is that the kings of those places don't remind me of each other at all. You think about the contrast between the king of Persia and the king of heaven. In the king of Persia, we see a drunken man making decisions of questionable morality. In heaven, we see a wise king who would never order his people to do anything that was immoral. In Persia, a king who used others for his own entertainment. In heaven, a king who seeks the good of his subjects at all times. In Persia, a king who knew nothing of humility, even though his power was limited. In heaven, a king who, through Jesus, embraced humility, although he was infinitely powerful. In Persia, a king who was so self-inflated that he spent 6 months celebrating his own greatness. In heaven, a king who gave up glory for 33 years to elevate others. So there you go. That is Esther 1, and that's how we do our studies every day. So if you're looking for a new Bible study, a daily Bible study, or maybe you just want to study the book of Esther, I'd be honored if you joined me every day for these 10 days or so as we go through this tremendous book. And I think I mentioned this before, but Esther is really a book that kind of plays out like a movie script. It just has all the elements of a great story, and kind of like Joseph's story in that sense. And so I think that you're really going to enjoy it, and there's a lot of really important and good lessons and applications that we can take from Esther. So until next time, Lord willing, tomorrow we'll take a look at Esther 2. Till then, I hope you have a fantastic day, and thanks for joining me for our kickoff of the book of Esther.